Here in the school district, what that really means is kind of the umbrella that oversees all of the teaching and learning, the professional development, the curriculum, the instructional components. Now there's two other assistant superintendents, one of them for human resources and one of them for the business side. Obviously Dr. Ackerman, who will be here soon, is the superintendent that oversees the whole piece. So this is my first year here in the district. I'm just finishing up my first year. One of the things that has struck me most is our level of partnership that we have with parents and the level of involvement that we have, or that our parents have, in the success of our students here in the Chappaqua Central School District, and this is a real tribute to that. I woke up this morning hearing the pitter-patter of rain on the roof, and I was afraid our attendance would drop because of that, so I appreciate that you took the time to brave the weather and get here and spend some time with us today. So you're here to hear a little bit more about our literacy programs, and we hope to provide that. We really have two goals for today. The first goal is to update you on the work that's been done this year around literacy and to give you a little preview of what's coming up for next year that we'll be working on. And then the second part of this is to really build your capacity and your confidence supporting your young readers at home. So the hope is that you can work with our members of our professional development team to learn a little bit about how you can better support your students as they go through our reading curriculum. So you're using some of the same language that the teachers are using and that we're using, and that we can continue to partner in that love of literacy and the teaching and learning of literacy at home and at school. Okay, so I wanted to start by having our team introduce themselves, if I could. I'm really fortunate to be the leader of a pretty robust professional development team with a broad range of skill sets, and many of them are running tables for us today. So what I'm going to ask is that they stand up and introduce themselves with their name and their position, just a little thumbnail of what they work on typically, and then if they could just tell us what their table is about, that would be helpful. All right, you want to start us off, Amy?
So, good morning, I'm Jamie Edelman, I'm the Director of Literacy here in the district. I'm going to be sharing some, reflections about the school year and some of the things that we've worked on that I feel really proud of. And then I'm going to do a small breakout group with a very introductory talk about our phonics program. And I overheard some of you when you came in that there weren't enough spots at the table for the number of people that were interested in doing that. So this will not be the only opportunity. And the closer we get to the opening of school, the more that we're going to know about it, because we'll have gone through the training and have more information. So if you didn't get the opportunity to come and talk about phonics this morning, I can promise you there will be other opportunities once the school year starts. Josh.
Hi, I'm Josh Kolobach. I'm the Director of Technology, Innovation, and Mathematics for the school district. I work on digital learning, STEAM education, and our math work and other things. This table will be talking about the way students process e-books versus print books and print text versus digital text, and talk about what the different practices and how we integrate that.
My table is the gold table there. We're going to be talking about the nonfiction scope and sequence and how we support readers as they read nonfictions. Nonfiction going through K, and we're going to go all the way up to 5 just so you get a sense of where students are going. That would be a gold table right there.
Jen Erping.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Thompson. I'm the staff developer for literacy. I work with the teachers on supporting students in the classroom, coaching, helping plan. I will be deeply involved in phonics next year.
And your table?
My table, I have two topics. One is on the kindergarten screening, and the other is on preventing summer flight.
Hi, I'm Ellen Moskowitz. I'm a staff developer for technology, STEAM, and special ed. And my table we're talking about, it's the great table, Growing Avid Readers in a Digital World. And we're going to be talking about how people who love reading read in a whole bunch of different contexts and at different times, how they reflect and think and share their reading, and how they then produce their own. So that's what my table is going to be about.
Hi, I'm Zach Arnold. I'm staff developer, and I also work on STEAM and technology integration. And my table is the green table, which is finding the parallels between the writing process and the design process. So at this table, we're going to be looking at the district-wide design process, K to 12, and looking at how that parallels reading and writing.
I'm Patty McCarthy.
Bradley. I'm the Director of Special Education and Related Services, and I'm going to be joining some of you at your table.
I'm Lisa Altan. I'm a staff developer here in the district for mathematics, but I was also a kindergarten teacher for 22 years at Grafflin, and I will be talking about understanding the building blocks of our literacy instruction. What are the research-based beliefs that have driven our instruction and our programs?
We got all right. So unfortunately, the leader of that professional development team, we are a really very strong team. Our teachers, they spend most of their time in our classrooms with our students doing teacher coaching, and in some cases pulling teachers out to do professional development. We run a lot of professional development over the summer, and it's really one of our core belief is hire really talented teachers, stockpile that talent, and then make sure you provide cutting edge professional development so they can really continue to ensure that our students thrive. So in terms of setting some 30,000-foot big picture context of the way we're thinking about educating kids, it is quite overwhelming to think about preparing 5-year-olds for a work world that they will see a peak 30 years from now or 40 years from now, right? So some things that we think will be true are that we think the world will be a more complex and dynamic place than it is today. We think it's going to be moving very fast and potentially very volatile. It'll probably be a really beautiful place, but in a lot of ways, potentially a scary place. And so when we try to prepare kids for being able to thrive in that environment, for jobs that we can't even imagine, and navigating technological breakthroughs and scientific breakthroughs that we probably can't imagine right now, it's daunting, right, to think about a 5-year-old now that we're preparing for a career and a life 30 years from now, 40 years from now. And so some of the pillars that we have is these think likes. We try to get kids to think like things, right? And so what we're thinking is that if we can get kids to think like engineers and really get skillful at using the design thinking process, that they'll be able to apply that to lots of complicated problems moving forward, right? If we can get them really steeped in the scientific method and collecting data and using data to deeply analyze problems in an objective way, then they'll have that as a tool in their toolkit. Regardless of what career they choose, they can use that and apply it later on to these really complex problems, right? We get them thinking about economists when it comes to like systems of giant scale with big data sets. We want them to write with power, right? We want them to think about themselves as authors. So regardless of what career they go into, they have the prose of a poet, for example. The logic of a computer scientist, right? That's why you see these things woven through our curriculum. Like coding is there, not necessarily that we want to produce a whole bunch of computer scientists, but these underlying skills are really important, right? So why is it that we have a morning of literacy? I think the answer to that is probably clear. The answer is we need our students to be able to read, write, listen, and speak in really fluent and powerful ways going forward. We also believe that kids will need to be able to learn and unlearn and relearn lots of times over the course of their lifetime. And so by teaching them how to read, write, listen, and speak well, then they will be able to do that. That's a belief system. So not only do we see literacy as a gateway, we really see it as the gateway to making sure that they can be lifelong learners as they go forward and really adapt in a versatile way to apply these different skill sets that we developed to a variety of circumstances. So we see literacy as such a core component of building scholars, and that's why we spend so much time working on literacy components. I'm really fortunate to have a leader of our literacy team in Jamie. And so Jamie really spearheads the work, K-12, when it comes to our literacy scope and sequence, and making sure that our students really do have access to this cutting-edge literacy instruction and kind of the cornerstone components that we know develop skills over time. So with that said, literacy, Jamie, our director of literacy, is going to go through some of the look back and the look forward as we go into next year.
I was hoping to not use the microphone, but I think I'm going to be better if I do.
Oh, was that too quiet? Could you hear me?
No, you were good. I don't know, I'm afraid I would really be maybe shouting, and I really want to have a conversation in a lot of ways. Good morning. I know many of you, there are lots of old friends here in the room. For those of you who don't know me, I was the principal of Grafflin School for 5 years, and I am now nearing the end of my first year as Director of Literacy here in the district. When Liza asked me to have this meeting, at first I think I might have even said no. Did I say no? I did. I said no. But now that the meeting is here, I am really excited that you're here to learn about the work that we've done this year because there are a lot of great things going on in the district. So, to start, I have a quote up here. The more that you read, the more things you will know. The more you learn, the more places you'll go. I take very seriously that it is my job in the district to make sure that all of our students read and write well, so that they can go to whatever place they want to. So I think a lot about the work that I do. I was actually up at 3:30 this morning and got out of bed to jot some things down that I was thinking about. But I'm always thinking about our students and what we need to do in the district to make their experiences as successful as they can possibly be. So I did hear some of you coming in saying, I don't know if this is exactly what I thought it was going to be this morning. So I want to share with you a little bit about how the morning is structured so you can readjust your expectations and relax and enjoy the time that we're going to have together. I'm going to start by giving you an overview of the work that's happened in the district, and then we're going to have 2 breakout sessions. So everybody got to hear from the staff developers what the topics are going to be. You should have signed up for a round 1 session and a round 2 session. And then at the end of our time together, each staff developer is going to engage their table in a read aloud, which will help to show you the kinds of work you can do when you're reading with your children at home over the summer and any night. So, as I was reflecting on the work that I did this year and thinking about today's meeting and what I wanted to share with you, I was able to categorize my work really into 3 categories and 3 big ideas. The work that I do all seems to fall in one of, no, I wouldn't say all of the work because there are lots of little things that I do, but the big work that I do falls into these 3 categories. I spearhead a lot of curriculum and program selection in the area of literacy. I am in charge of the implementation of those programs, and then I am responsible for reviewing and evaluating them. And the work that, when I talk about this year, what we did, there's work that was done in each of these categories that I think is what you're most interested in hearing about today. So, we selected a program this year. We selected a phonics program because there had been a review process done in the past when I became the director of literacy that indicated that we needed to rethink how we were teaching word study and phonics to our students. So we composed a committee of administrators from all 3 elementary schools. We had both the principal and the assistant principal on the committee. We had a kindergarten teacher from each school, a 1st grade teacher from each school. We had a 2nd grade teacher, a reading teacher, and a special ed teacher. So I think there were about 16 of us. And we had been working from January until the end of May to really think about and make good decisions about what the program would look like for the children of Chappaqua. And we decided on a program called Phonics First, that you will have many opportunities to learn about and think about and interact with. So, like I said before, if you didn't get that small group for session 1 or session 2, we will have other opportunities to share the program with you. The need to adopt a program came out of a review of the data and how our kids were performing. And our teachers have meetings periodically where they talk about how kids are doing, they review data, they look at what kids are doing in classrooms. And while some of our kids were having trouble with decoding, which is reading the words, we were seeing more kids having difficulty with encoding, which is spelling the words. And that prompted us to start this process. The other thing that kind of got us thinking about the process and what we should do is a phonics program is one of the 5 components of an effective reading program. And we had been using Words Their Way. We did not think that was meeting the needs of our students sufficiently. So we adopted a phonics program and we're very excited about it. The Second area is the implementation of programs. I'm actually going to try to do without this. I feel like so it's really important when we adopt a program that we implement it as the program was designed to be implemented. So the developers of a program put a lot of thought and research into why things in that program are the way they are. For example, there's a reason that Unit 1 comes before Unit 2. There's foundational work that takes place in Unit 1 that sets kids up to do Unit 2. We have been using our Teachers College units of study in all 3 of our elementary schools for about 10 years. And we are still working on how those programs are implemented. So we want the unit, growing readers in first grade, to look very similar in Rathlen as it does in Roaring Brook and as it does in West Orchard. So the way that we do that, one way, you met today Jen Thompson, who's a staff developer in our district that coaches teachers one-on-one in their classroom on the implementation of our units of study. She also works with groups of teachers to plan and think about how those units are going to be implemented in the classroom. We have staff developers from Teachers College who come into our classrooms and work alongside our teachers to make sure that we're implementing with fidelity in the classroom. And what else do we have going on? And then we give collaboration time for teachers to work together. And we as administrators do walkthroughs of the building with teachers to check vertical alignment, to make sure that one year is building on the next year and building on the next year and the programs are being implemented. So this is a really big job, and next year, when I'm standing here at the same time, we'll be talking about the implementation of the phonics program and making sure that it too is implemented exactly as it was intended to be. I'll take questions at the end. So the way that we review and assess the programs that we have is by looking at data. And we collect a lot of data on kids. Many of you have heard about our running records where we find out what level they're reading at. We track their growth of how they're improving as readers. We monitor their progress, and that's helpful for the district when choosing programs, but also really important for teachers when they're designing their instruction. And so this year we spent a lot of time sitting with teachers, looking at the data for individual students, and helping them to make really good decisions about what they're teaching and how they're teaching. So for example, when you look at the data and you see you have a group of kids with a similar need, the teacher might pull those kids in the classroom in a small group and teach them a targeted lesson that is appropriate for exactly what they need to learn at that time. We also use the data to think about how we teach things and about methods, and is it going to be small group or individual or whole class, and how are we going to deliver that instruction? So it was really important for us, for teachers, to see all of the information they have about what students are doing as readers and writers and use that to inform their program. We as a district use that data to inform our selection of curriculum and materials for our students. So the last thing is, not every curriculum is the perfect fit for every student. And we have students that sometimes experience difficulty. And so we did spend some time this year really thinking about how do we support those kids that are having difficulty learning how to read. And we aligned our interventions with our curriculum. So if you look up here, these are 4 new interventions that are in place currently. Some of them are in their second year, some of them are in their first year. So I'm going to start on this side with PAF. So PAF is a multi-sensory, systematic, and structured phonics program that is designed for primary students, so designed for K-1 students. So when we saw kids, based on our data taken from the classroom, who were having difficulty cracking the code and understanding that letters have sounds and decoding words, they received PAF as a small group and a pullout with a reading teacher. And there is a reading teacher in each building that is trained in PAF. So PAF is for K-1, 2. The equivalent of that for 3-4 is Wilson Reading. Wilson Reading is a structured systematic phonics program for students in 3rd grade and up. They have just now started seeing 2nd grade as well. So we have kids that might be in PAF for 2nd grade but might be in Wilson, and it depends on where they start. They're very similar, constructed in a very similar way and based on the same research and ideas. But PAF is for primary, Wilson is for upper elementary and beyond. And there's very specific criteria for receiving those programs. So it's not something that we would give just at a whim. We would look at data, the data would inform whether that's an appropriate fit for them, and that entrance criteria is prescribed by the developers of those programs. So it's not coming from the teachers of Chappaqua. It is something that they say is the criteria for who it will be the most effective program for. The 3rd program is called Just Words, which is a program for 3rd grade and up. It is a spelling program. It's also by Wilson Reading. It is for children who are having encoding difficulty. There is a teacher trained at all of our elementary schools, at least one, a reading teacher trained in Just Words also. I want to say 2 out of the 3 schools are currently running groups. The interesting thing about Just Words is you can't really join a Just Words group once it's underway. So sometimes we wait for a little while to have more than one student to use that program for. Again, it is a Wilson Reading program, and it has very specific entrance criteria for getting into that. So it's not something that we just say, okay, we think we have a spelling problem, we're going to put them in Just Words. That is not how the program was designed. We really look closely at certain assessments, how the students scored on those assessments, and then make a determination if that would be the right fit or not. The 4th program that's up there is a very specialized program that we have very few students in. I might even say we have only 2 or 3 in the district. It's called EdMark. It too has very specific entrance criteria. Sometimes for a program like that, a child has tried other programs that were unsuccessful for them, and that then comes in. But it is very rare that we use it, but we have it for those kids who we are really looking to find what is it going to be that's going to work for them. That's something that we have in our toolkit and that we have available to try if we find ourselves in that situation, and if it seems like it's a match of the entrance criteria and how the student is performing. So these 4 programs are very new to us, and yet the training for them is quite extensive and prescriptive. So even though our teachers are newly trained, they are very skilled at using it. The one thing that I just want to touch briefly on about Wilson, so you know, is this year we had many teachers who were in the process of getting their level 1 certification. So some of you might have children who were in the Wilson program because of the practicum. The criteria for the practicum is different than the criteria for the program. It is a different criteria because it is important that the teacher get to a certain level of the program as they are getting their certification. So that there could be a little bit of confusion out there about kids who receive Wilson or not. The greatest thing that we have found about Wilson is the training of it has been so beneficial to all of our reading teachers that even if we are not using the program exactly as it is designed to be used, it is filtering its way into reading instruction for all of our teachers. But it teaches very well is the science of reading and exactly how kids go through the process of learning how to read. The other thing that I'm just going to add, because I think it's really important for you to know as well, the training for phonics first is almost as extensive. So all of our K1 teachers and reading teachers, before we use phonics first, are going to go through a 3-day training. They told us it is full day, where our primary teachers are going to learn the science of reading step by step. So even if you think your child may not be a Wilson program person, they may not really qualify for that, but it would be really helpful that they had someone who could lead them through this process of learning how to read in a systematic way. The classroom teachers are going to have that same background and that same training. So it's really exciting that it seems like that's really going to give us all a wealth of information and knowledge that we might not have had before. So I can't let today go by without talking a little bit about our kindergarten screening. Is anybody here have an incoming kindergartner that went through the process? Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about it. What we did this year, which was different than in years past, is we had our kindergarten screening in early June. So we just completed it on Monday, and we met with about 70 incoming kindergartners and administered an early literacy screening, and also had them in a play group where we observed their school and social behaviors. And it was a great process. Our kids did so well, and our parents did so well too. I think we had very few tears on both sides, which is really exciting, and certainly says that we're all ready for kindergarten. But what's really important about this data is that, one, this is the data that we'll use to evaluate our brand new phonics program. So we have baseline data of our entering kindergartners who were not here at all and then are going to be here for the very beginning of the implementation of that program. The other thing is that we can think about and customize and plan our curriculum and program with the data, with the information about what our kids know and able to do when they get here. So we're going to think about what might we be able to not teach in such depth because our kindergartners come in already knowing that. Where are the gaps in what they know, and is there something that we may need to teach that we haven't done before because we didn't have that data at this time. The kids that had the kindergarten screening in June will be screened on the same screener in November. So it's very different when you come in and a strange person takes you away from your mom or dad to administer a screening. We may not be getting the most accurate data. We're going to do it again when they are here and once they've transitioned, and it will really be helpful for us to track their growth and progress moving forward. So we just had an opportunity to look back and to reflect on some of the really big and important work that went on in our district. We talked about the selection of a program, a phonics program. That's a really big deal for us and taken really seriously and was done very thoughtfully. We spent time on implementation and monitoring of our core reading program, which is our TC units of study for reading and writing. And we have things in place, systems in place to make sure that those are implemented the way that the developer of them intended. And we are always monitoring student progress and the effectiveness of our programs by looking at data. So when I reflect back, those are my 3 big pillars, and we had opportunities to work really hard at all 3 during the course of this year. When I think ahead and start to plan for next year, the work in those 3 areas doesn't stop. We'll continue to monitor and support teachers as they implement our units of study. We will also do that for the initial implementation of our phonics program. We will continue to assess how we're doing and how kids are doing and make sure that our instruction and our programming meets the needs of the students in front of us. So that's still on the list and still works in progress. But we also need to think about how we're communicating how your kids are doing to you. And so we will engage in a process for rethinking our elementary school report card, and we'll invite some of you to be a part of that process because the report card is for your purposes, so we want to make sure you're getting the information you want. We're going to think more once we know phonics first about whether or not that's something that we would roll forward and implement in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grades. It is a program that goes up to 5th grade, so it's available to us if it's something that we think meets the needs of our students and something that we need to fill a gap in our reading program. So we're going to look at that. We're going to, as I said, continue this idea of curriculum alignment and implementing our programs with fidelity so that if I tell you that we're using the units of study for reading and writing, you know that they're being implemented as they were designed to be. And the last thing, that's something that's come up in the work that we do with teachers and in the places that we go for training, is we need to take some time to look at our classroom libraries and make sure that they serve as windows and mirrors for your students, for your children. And what I mean by that is it's really important that your children see themselves in the books that they're reading and that they see the world beyond themselves in the books that they're reading. And when we have reviewed our libraries, just very quickly, taking some samples, we do not believe that we do that as well as we need to. And so we're going to spend some time thinking about what's there and what's available for our children to read so they can see, wow, that character is just like me, because that makes kids feel really good and want to read more. So we have a lot of work to do, as you can see, which is good for me. So in a minute, we're going to break into our breakout groups. I know that you're in all different. We are so.
Say something.
Yes, I want you to. I'm so excited that our superintendent is here.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming today. I just wanted to begin by thanking Jamie. All the work that Jamie led this year was the result of our strategic planning process, where we received feedback from our families and from our faculty of what we need to work on as a district. And three of the main areas that were identified were strategic alignment of our curriculum, K through 12, our social emotional learning program, and assessment. And you can see thematically through this presentation, a lot of Jamie's work has been around those three areas in our literacy program. And since I've been here, there's been a lot of commentary provided around phonics, but not only from our families that were expressing some concern, but from our faculty. And the extensive process that our faculty went through under Jamie's direction to select our new phonics program was extraordinary. And I just wanted to pause and just take a moment and acknowledge Jamie and thank her, and give credit to myself for pulling her out of the principalship and placing her in a role that would have maximum impact in this district, to really look at an area that I knew we needed to focus on and do some heavy lifting. So, Jamie, I want to thank you on behalf. I'm glad many of you came today, because this is a lot of moving pieces. I mean, we're talking about reshaping our program. While the reading and writing workshop will be the foundation of our work, we have a lot of layers on top of that now to support our kids in different ways. And when we think about literacy instruction, we typically are considered K-5, but our workshop spreads all the way up to senior year. So understanding that continuum as a district is really important. But building those foundational skills at the elementary level are critical to future success for our students. So I know Jamie's going to facilitate the rest of this evening, and I know giving us the feedback that we needed to begin this work with our faculty last year when we went through our process. So, thank you.